We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Looks like the rain has gone.
G'day and welcome to a live recording of the Mankind podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Clift, and today we are joined by Ashanti Branch, the leader, the captain of the EverForward Club, longtime friend, long-time participant in the Mankind podcast. In fact, he was a big inspiration for our first iteration of the show, which was Masks Off Monday, where we had 60 episodes on that first show before we ever started this podcast 3 years ago. And yeah, Masks Off Monday, we amassed about accumulatively about 2 million views. So we're talking legacy, man, and you've been impacting the lives of boys and men for countless years now as an educator, now a nonprofit leader. So, mate, it's amazing to share the mic with you again at the Mankind podcast. Welcome, mate.
Thank you, man. Good to see you. It's great. Always great to be with you, and glad to be a part of this next chapter of what's happening in not only in the world, but in the work with men and boys.
Yeah, and what's happening in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So, and first, this is the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there's more than one way to be a man, and we're proving that every single week by getting out in the community and doing activities like the one we did this past weekend at the very first Men's Mental Health Matters event in Chattanooga, Tennessee at Miller Park. We had over 200 people come and attend. We had 20 nonprofit partners that are mental health centric. We had showers for the homeless, haircuts for the homeless. We had an inflatable soccer ring where kids could come around and kick around. We had 60 ice plungers, cold plungers come in. We had 1,200 pounds of ice for a big mass cold plunge. There was yoga, great music. So it really was a fantastic event. I'm grateful to my team. We really pulled it together and it far exceeded our expectations. So yeah, it's brings me a lot of pride to share about that event, the success that it was. And one of the things that we asked participants to do was go over to the EverForward Club mask station. So for the kids, for the husbands, the wives, whomever could go and create their mask. Now, for those that are watching live on social media, we're going to be putting these masks up to the camera. For those listening, we're going to explain what's on them. But Ashanti, kick us off, mate. Tell us about the Million Mask Challenge and the concept behind this exercise, creating these masks.
Yeah, so I think it was the journey was my transition from different schools I was working at. I got invited. I was at my old alma mater, my high school, doing as a dean. I was working with some young men who were amazing young men, like beautiful hearts, funny, charismatic, but academically not doing well. Socially, in terms of how schools really work. Now, the social aspect of school, they were doing great, but the way schools normally work, they weren't doing so well in that way. And I think it was because they had all this baggage. And so when we started meeting in these circles, it was around the time we got invited to be a part of a documentary that they were creating called The Mask You Live In. And I had taken about 18 young men up to this young men's retreat called Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. And there I met one of the directors or whatever. But the long story short is that they invited us to be a part of this documentary. We did this mask activity with a group of young men. It was the first time we'd ever done it. It was this vision of like, I know when I meet with them regularly, they don't talk about how they really feel. Like they put on this show that everything's good. But since I'm the dean, no, you're not a 10 today, buddy.
Yeah.
I was careful. You're not a 10. I just suspended you yesterday. Why are you telling these people you're a 10? But because they had to put on this show in front of everybody, and I didn't want to suspend kids, but when the certain things they were doing in school were just behaviors that were causing, according to the way school works, not working, And I think in my office 101, we got real, but in front of each other, they pretended. So when we were invited to be a part of this documentary, I said, well, what if I just make them not talk about it? What if they just write it? And that's what we did. The first time we did it, it was writing words, things you let people see, things you don't let people see. We balled those pieces of paper up. We threw them at each other as a little energy moving. And then when they picked up a new piece of paper, luckily it was always somebody else's. Yeah. And that was how it started. And it has been an amazing journey since that day in that room at Fremont High School.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. And I encourage anyone to check out The Mask You Live In. Powerful documentary. It's how I first got exposed to Ashanti and where our relationship began back in 2017, where you were already coming to Australia. And I said, oh, you make a pit stop in the Gold Coast. And you and I and dear friend Tom Callow were out there in Surfers Paradise under the sign, handing out masks, getting told by the police, hey, you can't do that here. So
I was like, man, you got me all the way across the world talking to police, man. I'm here to take a break. You know what I mean?
I know. You went across the world to get away from the Bay Area to stop to not be dealing with police. Yeah. So beautiful work that you're doing, and let's jump into the masks that we collected. So we collected 27 masks in total, and we'll start with this first one here. So a male, 32, on the mask. Here's the exercise for those listening too. Yeah. On the front of the mask, you draw what are the 3 qualities about yourself that you let people see. So underline, you let people see. And then on the back, what are the 3 qualities about yourself that you don't usually let people see? So on the front, what can people see on the mask? On behind, what's it hiding? What's it protecting? And so this person put confident, happy, strong on the front. And on the back, insecure, unsure, and unappreciated. Interesting polarity there. So on the front, I seem competent and happy and strong. On the backside, I actually feel insecure, unsure, and unappreciated.
I'm that man.
Yeah.
I'm that man.
Yeah, you say, I'm that man. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, like there's a work that we have to do in not only professional work, but in terms of just depending on how you live your life in the world. But I'm in charge. I'm running a nonprofit. I got to have all the answers. I got to know where all the money's coming from. And oftentimes I'm trying to figure it out myself. But on the outside, I'm oftentimes doing my best to like, we got this figured out. We got this worked out. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, right? You can. And so I think that happens often in the work, but I think, and having space, look, I'm on a men's team, so I don't have to always keep it. I get to go every Tuesday night to my men and do the work, but some men don't have that. So they oftentimes are going from their work mask to their home mask to their, and constantly behind the scenes feeling those things. And if you never had a place to talk about it, I think it could get really stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a beautiful example of what you shared. I'm that man, which is men generally don't bring their troubles or their problems to other men because we've been raised that that's a sign of weakness. And what you're doing is saying, I'm that man. So if this person who wrote this mask could hear that and go, man, I am not alone. Yeah. I am not alone. And that's what we're trying to remind men and boys is that you are not alone. Real men do feel, and it's not weak to speak. So I'll continue. We have a 66-year-old man from Atlanta. On the front, he has dependable, analytical, playful. And on the back, he's got hiding, rebel, and expectant.
Look at that image. Yeah, there's an image on the back of a person like peeking out from behind a wall. Yeah. It's so telling of the mask, right?
Yeah.
Where do I get to like take off that facade and like and be seen and be seen
and be seen? Bingo.
And be seen.
We have a non-binary person, 31, on the front, brave, humorous, and kind. And on the back, fear, procrastination, and lack of knowledge.
Oof.
So we can see, why would I want fear, procrastination, and lack of knowledge to be on the front of my mask?
Yeah.
Ashanti, why wouldn't I want that?
Well, because if you're walking around afraid all the time, you can become victimized. If you walk around like not sure all the time, like it's hard to talk to somebody who is constantly in a perpetual state of self-doubt. And even the best motivators have to be like, okay, I think there's one story about Tony Robbins who threw water in somebody's face. They were like going off and he's like, get back, come back.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just got to get shooken out of the old story, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, but you need a place to do it. But I think you imagine if you did it all the time. Yeah. And I think I don't tell people that they shouldn't have a mask. I got good masks.
Yeah. Yeah.
These well crafted.
Yeah. These masks are, they are helpful, right? They're something that we build and we hone and craft to serve a purpose. The danger therein lies, though, do I know what I'm wearing when I go from the boardroom to the bedroom? Yeah. Right? Am I showing up in my whole self? And what if just our plain face and what it is could be how we exist in any environment. Therein lies the goal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That authenticity.
Yeah.
So we've got, so female, 42 from Udawa, kindness, patience, and confidence on the front. And on the back, unworthiness, self-doubt, loneliness. So you got to understand, to those listening, these masks, what's behind it is the lived experience. That's like the reality. And I don't know about those of you listening, but the back of my mask, those messages, those beliefs, those qualities, that's the record that's on loop. That just keeps going around and around. And unless someone is validating the external mask that I've built consistently and constantly, the volume of what's playing behind the scenes, behind the mask, is 10 times as loud. It can be deafening. And so you have this person confident, patient, kind. That's what they're projecting on the front, but on the back, unworthy, self-doubt, loneliness. Is the script that's running.
That's right. And what we've seen all over and over again is that when we give young people, definitely in our work with young people, when we give them room, and even when we do work with teachers, but let's say with the young people first, when we give them room to recognize that in this classroom, in this school, there are other people who feel what I felt. I heard one student say the other day, when I heard 2 cards that were words that I wrote, but then they weren't my cards. And you realize that, wait, there are 2 people in here that are feeling similar things that I'm feeling, but yet I don't even know who they are, actually. I don't even know who they are because all I've been able to interact with was their mask all the time. So I don't know what people are really going through behind the scenes, right? And I think that's so powerful. Yeah. So, yeah, beautiful.
These insights are powerful. We've got a 30-year-old male from Chattanooga, hardworking, inquisitive, and patient on the front. And on the back, you got procrastinator, vain, and judgmental. So you've got hardworking on one side, procrastinator on the back. And one thing that blows my mind in this work, and for those watching live, you can see what the mask looks like. For those, when you've been in this work a while, you start to identify that, like, even though the data suggests that they're hardworking, this man's output may be triple what any of us could achieve in a day. Yet he can still have that procrastinator story running in the background.
Yeah.
Okay, 32-year-old female from Hickson, strength, humor, fun. And on the back, struggle, pain, worry. So think about this as you're listening in, about people you pass in the corridor, people you pass on the street. You already may have judgments about them. It could be the clothes they're wearing. It could be how they hold their posture. It could be their skin color. It could be our brain, these computers, immediately takes in data so that we make assumptions and judgments. So you might see on someone else, hardworking, motivated, dedicated. We've got a 36-year-old man here from Chattanooga. And on the front, you might see hardworking, motivated, and dedicated because that's the mask he's wearing and that's what he's putting out there. But on the back, he's got scared, tired, and impulsive. So check yourself when you're making these judgments of people, because these people that you may be pedestaling and putting up there may be running these things in the background that totally go against the story you're making up about them.
Can you pull up? Okay, can you pull up that mask you just had and the two masks before with the other person that said hard worker? Can you pull those together? Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, so we got the hard worker who says on the back he's a procrastinator, and then you got the hard worker who on the back says I'm tired. Now, here's what I experience as a hard worker, and I can. I have. I have dozens of masks, and hard worker is usually one of my words on the front, almost always. I've been trying not to use it, trying to find a new word, but I almost write hard worker. And what if what if the messaging you were talking about that plays behind the scenes said you're not enough? There's not enough work you can do to fulfill that. It's going to take a changing of thought process of how you feel.
Yes.
Because no matter how hard I work, if I don't feel like I'm good enough, I'm constantly chasing something that is not even stationary. And that is where I find not only myself having to be really checking myself. Like, I'm a hard worker. I'm committed to being a hard worker. I like that people know I'm a hard worker. And I don't even work hard enough for myself to feel like I'm a hard worker. Like I sometimes, and the procrastination doesn't come because I want to be lazy. It comes because I'm
Yeah.
exhausted. I'm like, okay, Shanti, what are we gonna do? Like
Yeah.
I can't. I can't. It's 2 a.m. I can't even read this email. I'm trying to
Yeah.
And how often do people, men, not only, not other, everyone probably, but I'm talking about the men right now. How often do we continue pushing and pushing and pushing, not feeling enough, and then we burn out and we wonder, we think it's something wrong with us, as opposed to that we have been bought into a system that
Yes.
says no matter how much you achieve,
Gotta do
it's
more.
not enough.
And how often, Ashanti, are we working with men after the fact? Workaholics after the fact, when their relationship's on the ropes, or they're in the middle of the divorce process, or the relationship's completely severed legally and relationally, because they've been committed to that work, because that was the script. Real men do the job and they get it done. And period. Don't forget, yeah, but they're omitting the part where it's like real men finish the job, they get it done, and they sacrifice recitals, they sacrifice, games, they sacrifice quality time, they sacrifice dinner time, they sacrifice bedtime, with the kids, to do a job. And that's the beautiful thing about this next generation coming up, is older generations want to judge them like they just don't want to work. And it's like, yeah, they don't want to work for a job that's going to take them away from living in their 20s and being a kid and exploring.
Yeah.
Even though they need the job to pay for groceries that are astronomically expensive right now. And they know they're going to be 41, 42 by the time they can save for a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder they're checking out. And so we need to really build compassion here and understand that, how many of these blokes we've read are above the age of 30, right?
Yeah.
So if you're above the age of 30 and you have these fears and stuff behind your mask, that, it may be a while before you share that with anyone. Yeah. And guess what young people are feeling right now?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I'll show you one. I'll show you one here. 17-year-old young man. You can't see the picture, but on the front has a picture of a mask smiling, and behind it, peeking out a mask that is looking sad. There's no words on the front, but the back of this 17-year-old male from San Francisco, it says, insecure, scared for the future, and extremely caring that they can't show.
They can't show it.
17-year-old scared for the future. Like the time when you just want to enjoy life, right? And you're a kid worried about being scared for the future. I'll show you one more, just another 17-year-old, just so you can make the connection. Okay, so it says happy. I can't even read this one. What does that say? Well, I'll read the ones I can read, so at least you can see this. So this one is like a little stick figure. 17-year-old young man from San Francisco. The front says cheerful,
happy, and carefree.
And carefree, that's the word, yeah.
And on the back, it's...
And the back says...
stressed out, scared, unsure, and worried.
So,
there's that dichotomy, right? There's that dichotomy of what I feel like I need to show. Yeah. And then there's the reality of like where I'm at, what I'm actually feeling.
That's right.
And so here's the thing that I'm learning from this experience and having done this mask exercise, a couple times over the past 7 years, has been that this is my take. I'm not saying to people that they need to take what's behind their mask and put it at the front. It's not saying you need to be pissed off, rageful, and frown all the time. 58-year-old man from Cairo, Egypt. He has nice, kind wires, and on the back, he's got anger, frowning, and rage. It's not saying that you need to take what's behind and bring it to the front and wear it. It's not about wearing it. It's about acknowledging it. Like, this is like the beginning stage of unearthing the reality and the truth. And because it's a fun kinesthetic exercise that you've created, mate, that uses the right side of the brain, uses the left side a little, that allows people to tap into feeling. And that's the power of this. It's just unearthing and identifying, hey, how might that anger and rage be leaking in my life, leaking with my kids, leaking at my job, leaking out the sides. And if I can find the right mental health professional or peer supported group How can I, in a healthy way, engage in that anger and rage and move through it so that I can be more nice, kind, and wise?
And what if even what you said there, not about my family and work and other places leaking out, what if it's leaking out against myself? What if it's like you talked about the burnout? What if it's stressing my organs out and I'm wondering why I'm always in some kind of perpetual pain, but I can't talk about the pain I'm feeling because I'm not supposed to be weak. So I walk around in pain for weeks and months until I actually can't walk anymore. And now I'm in the doctor and they're like, why didn't you come see us months ago? And you're like, oh, well, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like, and how often does that happen? Imagine that man who said kind on the front. That man walks around with a smile all the time, being gentle and caring.
Yeah.
And what happens when that rage and anger gets to the boiling point? No one has even seen it coming.
Well, and that's what happens, right? I judge that many of, like, you talk school shooters. Yeah. We talk someone just getting drunk at a bar, having their beer spilled over, and they turn around and take their glass and just shove it in someone's face. We see that on the back in my hometown a lot. Glassing people is, why does it come out after a couple drinks, being in an altered state? Because the filters are not there to hold it down, and it comes out. I mean, we see this in rage, and we also see this in, guys when they get drunk, and it's like, oh, I love you, bro. Oh, I love you so much, bro. I'd do anything for you, bro. And it's like, oh, you would have never said that sober.
Yeah.
Because you would have been labeled gay. You would have been labeled weak, a girl, a sissy, whatever. And then men police each other back into unfeeling, not sharing, locking it down.
That's right. That's right. Without a doubt. And how often do those substances are the only way it lets room out? But imagine if you don't have a way of letting out. You're not an athlete, or maybe the athletes, they can let it out in the sports, right? Like put energy in sports. And what happens when the sport goes away or you get an injury? You heard it from professional athletes. You heard it from amateur athletes. You heard it from high school athletes.
Time and time
I didn't
again.
know what to do. I felt like I had nothing to hold on to anymore. And then, because it was rooted in this external thing that had to happen for me to feel a little bit better, as opposed to like I got good about feeling good about myself. And I'm not here to say trying to make it sound easy. Like I'm doing it right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, Boyson.
Brandon, what's happening, man?
Mate, I'll tell you, little one, my daughter, she is becoming more and more her, which is amazing. I'm just eating it up. But when I don't want to eat it up is in the middle of the night, 4 a.m, when she's trying to skip naps and I've got a lot of things to do. That's when things get a little tough.
So what are you leaning on? I mean, yeah, right. I get that. How much coffee are you drinking these days?
Well, mate, you know me. I'm certainly not. I don't like the vices. You've been in the health space for a while, and I get a little bit too hooked on those things. So I'm pretty grateful that we had the folks at Magic Mind reach out to provide us and the audience some value with their Magic Mind drink solution. And dude, I can tell you, it is blowing my mind.
What's it doing for you? I'll talk about mine, but what's it doing for you?
Well, mate, I think the biggest thing is sustained energy. That's what I need. I need to have the same energy at 10 a.m. as I do need at 2 p.m. But when the energy dips and I've still got work to do and she's crawling all over me, screaming in my ear, that is when I need to be able to push through. And yeah, so I'm not getting the dips. And unlike coffee, I'm sleeping at night, which is amazing.
Yes, the ingredient thing. So that's me too. I've been a coffee dude for a very long time. And when I get into these spaces where I'm just working, and I get too much into the coffee, I end up like frazzled and stomach achy and jittery. And what I'm seeing with Magic Mind is like, I've reduced the amount of coffee I'm actually drinking in the morning, and Magic Mind boosts the focus for me. So for me, it's like, how many things can I juggle in a day? And having that focus without the coffee stuff, without all the coffee downside, I think has been really good for me. And yes, the sleep thing, man, there's some ingredients in this stuff that have totally helped my sleep.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I mean, because you're getting the caffeine from matcha, which is an extended release caffeine as opposed to like an intense rise then dip. It's got all the fancy mushrooms that everyone's taking these days, including ashwagandha, which gives you that más fuerte kind of energy. And they're off. And fortunately for us, they've offered us a great discount that us and you, the listeners, have access to get 56% off your first subscription and 20% off a one-time purchase with the unique discount code MANKIND. So if you go to magicmind.com/mankind, you get access to this discount. And like us, you get to enjoy this sustained energy, that mass birthday energy. I can take that into a couple places, but yeah, big fans.
And yes, check it out. Yes,
yeah, and I need to get my wife to stop stealing mine, which would be great.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a myth, right? There's nothing about this is supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
It's right. This doesn't get easier. You get stronger.
That's it.
And you build more self-awareness. The journey takes a shorter distance, less time to kind of tap in. And you know this, Ashanti, probably through your facilitation and working with teens, kids says something really dark. And there were probably a moment where you were just taken out of your body, taken out of your mind, and like, holy, how am I going to contain this? Like, and I imagine now there's probably not a lot of kid can tell you that you can't hold it down and be able to be present and be there, because you've probably, in your experience, heard the worst of it.
Yeah. And in their mind, because it's probably the worst they've ever said out loud, they're like, oh, like, I mean, literally it happened a couple of days ago. And I literally was like, the kid was like, I don't want to tell you because I don't want to make a big deal about it. I'm like, but I hear it in your voice, right? I mean, it's almost like they're saying, I want to tell you, but I'm worried about what you're going to think of me. I'm worried about what you're going to feel about. I'm worried it's going to change your thought of me. And I'm like, well, listen, you only can go by what you trust in your soul right now. Like, have I ever judged you before? Have I ever? So maybe you can just trust that it won't start today, right? But I think in that idea that if I'm feeling so dark that I don't think that I can tell anybody because I've been holding it by myself, and then to find out, I've known this kid for almost 5 years, and he just told me something brand new, and I had never heard, and I'm like, I thank you for sharing. My heart inside is like, oh my God, what do I do? What am I going to say? But on the outside, I'm like, man, thank you for sharing that. So I'm really sad that you're feeling those things right now.
Yeah.
And but I think that what happens when they can't go to an adult who can hold it and be okay with it, and the adults are freaking out more than them, and you're like, and then it becomes like a worse scenario, And I think our young people definitely need it, and we as adults need it too,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, man. So yeah, for those of you that may feel like you've got your white belts on right now as you're doing this work, guess what? There's no black belt. There's no black belt. So it's just work. It's just muscles. Like, your heart's going to get stronger as the more you do this work, the more you discover. And that's why we at the Mankind Project encourage men sit in men's circles, because you get that opportunity to practice bringing this stuff up in a safe environment where you're not going to be judged and it's going to be held in confidentiality.
When you said that there's no black belts. I mean, there's no. Here's an analogy I was thinking about the other day. I was out in the garden, doing some work, and like I had no gloves. But in my mind, because I've done this before, I know that if I don't get some gloves on, I'm gonna cut my hands all up, and I'm gonna like have to be trying to do some deep cleaning of all this dirt in my hands. And I'm like, what do I really feel? And the old me would have just stayed out there just doing the work. Now, it won't take me 3 minutes to go into the house, grab a pair of gloves, and come back out. And I know the old me would have been like, oh, no, you know what? I'm just going to deal with the pain later. And in the moment, I'm like, this is silly. What are you doing? Just take yourself in there and go grab the glue. You know where they are. Like, I think how often do...
You're a smarter man than me, because I'll be out weed whacking and I'm like, I should have glasses on right now and long pants, and I'm like, no, I'm nearly done, and I'll just be getting whipped in the face with grass clippings. And so but maybe you've given me something to aspire to.
The lessons just keep coming, right? You'll get to learn it again. You don't learn it this time, it makes it more likely will show up again.
But that brings up a great point, though, because many of us know the certain behaviors that get us in trouble. But in the moment, it feels so justified. It's such a low-hanging fruit. It feels so easy to grab. And yet, licking our wounds after it, going, man, I knew if I reacted in that way, got too emotional, said this, said that I was going to end up in this place again. And here I am.
Here I am.
In the mud or on the couch, right? So that's the reminder is like, and I say this to some men in my work is maybe it needs to sting more. Maybe it needs to sting more. If you can't logically see how you're setting yourself up to fail, sounds like things need to get worse, but understand what's at stake, what getting worse looks like for your marriage, for your fatherhood, for your parenthood. Like, just understand that. You can either do something now with the little awareness you have, or get a bunch of awareness and really touch the stove and mess up.
Man.
I have a couple here I want to roll through, and then we'll wrap up. This one was quite interesting. I want to hear how often you see this. Front of the mask: unperturbed, unaffected, unfeeling. Man from Key West, 52. Back of the mask: emotional, out of control, freaking out. And this imagery is pretty powerful.
Ooh wee.
Yeah. So if you can imagine that on the front, the unemotional is just a very blank face, just very neutral mouth, and on the backside, it's like Animal from the Muppets. Very great drawing.
Exactly.
Very great drawing. So how often do you see that someone puts on the front nothing?
Yeah.
And then behind it is a freaking out. How often do you see that?
Often. This idea of cool, calm, collected on the back, just this idea like, man, I'm caring too much by myself. Like I'm like whichever with the rage. I'm kind, I'm great, everything's good. And behind, I'm just like trying to just keep it all together because everyone depends on me. Everyone needs me. So therefore I can't need someone. If everyone needs me, how dare I be somebody who needs people too?
Yeah.
And I think that part and that picture is just so like beautiful as a way of understanding what we see on the outside. It's kind of like the answer, like if you say I'm fine, right? Like I'm good, I'm fine. That's a nice, easy, nothing bothers me, I'm all good. And what's happening behind the scenes is all of this complexity that I think we wish we didn't have to hold by ourselves.
Well, man, let me, I wanted to kind of finish on that one, just as a reminder that there are those of us who are showing nothing, and behind it is freaking out. And so I encourage in the circles that I'm in to say to people, we had a man in our circle last year take his life, and it was devastating for all of us. And of course, naturally, we went into these places of like, oh, what could we have done differently, and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, cop that, because I know, Ashanti, you've had boys that you've worked with, in their lives too soon, and it's not about anything that could have been done differently. It's the awareness of what's holding me back from asking someone, "Are you okay?" What's holding me back from saying, "Hey man, like, do you want to get coffee?" Or like, or just that is the best question I've ever found is, "Are you okay?"
Are you okay? Yeah.
Because I want to meet that 52-year-old man from Key West and just say, "Man, tell me your story. Tell me about yourself."
Ooh. And I want to say that for the men that have taken their own lives, died in that way, there are probably even more that the health concerns of life have taken them out as well.
Yeah.
The not having people they can talk to, not telling their family, hey, I'm not feeling good.
Yeah.
And I'm holding and trying to be the tough guy for everybody.
Yeah.
And then I've caught the thing way too late.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to bother people, worry people, stress people. I didn't think that no one cared about how I really felt.
Yeah.
And how do we find those spaces? And if we can't do it with our family immediately, then you got to find a circle.
Yeah.
You got to find some men. Find one man that say, hey, can we have a talk once a week where we just get real? Like, can we just not have to pretend with each other? Can I just have you for 1 hour a week where we just like not pretend like everything is good and we support each other? Man, I wish more men had it in their lives. So do.
And they can, though. They can. And that's a big part of the initiative behind this Men's Mental Health Matters event here in Chattanooga. Part of our kind of underlying message that we obviously didn't put out there was we're helping men get their heads out of the sand to know that these resources are available here in Chattanooga and get their heads out of their asses and actually see, oi, Look at what's at risk here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of men, like you said, it's a slow burn to their inevitable demise because they don't check their testicles and they don't get their annual checkup. And they find out that the thing that, their families find out that the heart attack that took them, the signs were there 20 years ago, but they never got it checked out. They never altered. And that often comes back to a message of I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Until I've achieved this success, until I have this car, until I've married the girl or the guy, until I have these markers of success, I'm not worthy. But that end goal just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And men are setting themselves up to fail.
I can't take a day off of work to go to the doctor. I got work to do. I got to pay these bills. I got responsibilities. Who am I to be taking a day off? Like I got like my life. Like I'm not that sick.
Yeah.
The pain is not that bad.
And then you stand in front of a man and you go, what you're actually saying is my family's love for me is not worth it. That work is more important than me being there for my kids. Work is more important for me being able to actually experience my grandchildren.
Yeah.
That's what many men are doing consciously and unconsciously. And these, I'm so thankful for you, Ashanti. I'm so thankful for these masks because you're inviting men and boys in to say, hey, do you see how you set your life up?
And just to say, I want to tell you, men out there, anyone watching this, like we're talking about the men because we're talking about this men's event in Chattanooga, but everyone that we experience understands the concept of a mask. And I want you to know that you're not alone. You are not alone. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to everyone out there who's listening, hearing my voice. You are not alone. There is more to you than anybody can ever see by just looking at you. If you've ever been judged, they're not really judging you. They're judging what they see on the outside and what projection they make about what they see. But there's more to you. There's more to anything that somebody's called you, said to you. And I hope that you will make a mask at some point in your life. Like you will just take the 3-step process anonymously and be like, oh yeah, there is a whole lot of stuff I'm not letting people see. And so to realize that maybe you got to find that one person that you can be more fully yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've been asking people. We're in this movement, and the goal of 1 million people to reach is not to say take these masks off and leave them off. No, it's to say, do you have a safe person in your life that you can go and be able to take it off with?
Yeah. And if you don't, you have to create that in your life.
That's right.
You got to put the effort in. You have to put the effort in because they're out there. I'm telling you, they're out there.
They are. They are, without a doubt.
Well, I'll finish with this. At the end of our event, we had the men at the event come together and make a circle in the center of the field. And I had them look at one another, and without even asking, some of the men started joining hands. And man, we had white, black, brown men. We had gay, straight, non-binary, male, female, all in that circle. And I said, look around, men. This is brotherhood. This is change. This is breaking a cycle that needs to break. This is showing men and the young boys in your life what's possible in community. And while that was happening, I had some of my female volunteers create a circle on the outside of the ladies, and they were holding hands. And I'd asked the men to turn around, and they turn around and they see these linked arms of these women. And I said, look who's been waiting for you to show up. Look who needs you in your life, and look who's got your back. This is why in men's work, we market often to women because they're the ones that are like, oh, please talk to my husband. Please talk to my boyfriend. Please talk to my son or my brother, because they get it. They're much more adept at being in these spaces and having these conversations. And we have a lot to learn from our sisters on how to connect and build community and not be in isolation.
That's right.
So,
well, because we've been told that that is not manly, so therefore we've been pushing ourselves away from it, from the concept of that, right? The more modern we get, we like, oh no, we don't need to do that. That's for them, and then we miss it, right? And I think even for the men who are like, oh, you're just trying to make men soft, you're trying to make men weak. You're like, I think you're missing the point. But if we're not gonna like. Yeah. And so sometimes even having the conversation makes it complicated because people are trying to tell you that it's trying to change you. You know, it's like saying, can you be just more fully you? Can you just not hide the parts of you that you think are not okay? Because if that's the way, then I tell our young men in our work, look, if you're shutting off half of your emotions, you're becoming a monster. And you know what they do with monsters? They lock them in cages.
They lock them in cages.
And we don't want that for you. So how about we find the safe space to be more our full self so we can see that we're a mixture of all of it.
Yeah, come to my circle, experience my men's group, and tell me those men are weak with the things that they share, in the way they hold one. I dare you to stand in that space and call any of those men out as weak. They are the strongest men I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing and experiencing space with in my life. Yeah. I'll take that to the grave. That's the hill I'll die on. So, Ashanti, my mate, thank you so much for sharing space with me again and you know, helping me kind of unpack some of these masks that we collected here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're going to get them to you, and we're going to make sure that in this podcast there are links to your website where they can, you know, where people can do their masks online to save the paper. So
that's right. And this Thursday is Mental Health Action Day. You know, Mental Health Action Day is where we go from taking the conversation to mental health awareness. Let's just be aware of mental health. No, let's move into some action. And so on Thursday, we're inviting people all over the world to make a mask. You can do it today. It's a website, millionmask.org. But ultimately, you can make it whenever you want. But Thursday is a beautiful day because you're going to see people around the world taking these mental health actions and just say, how can we make it better? Not just talk more about it. Let's do something. And that's what we're trying to do here in the Million Mask Movement.
Absolutely. It's what you're doing, not trying to do. It's what you're doing in the Million Mask Movement. I've just put those links in the comments for those that have joined us live on Facebook, and they will be in the show notes. For those of you that have joined us on this, the Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there is more than one way to be a man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
There's more to you than people can see.
Mm-hmm. We have.
We've done that. Good to be with you today, brother.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, my man.
This has been another episode of the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. We have been your hosts, Boyson Hodgson and myself, Brandon Clift, and we want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. If you want to find out more about today's guests and support them in their mission, you can find links to them in the show notes. Now, if you have found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, we are always grateful for a rating and review of the show on iTunes. Now, above all else, we've got to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you have made it possible for us to let men all over the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. And if something in this episode has touched you, then perhaps it is the call to action to get involved in men's work. With live trainings happening constantly and in-person trainings happening all over the world, the Mankind Project definitely has something for you. Now, if you've enjoyed the music in this episode and all of our episodes, be sure to check out Jim Donovan and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. And lastly, just know, what it means to me to be a man is completely different than what it means for you. That is the beauty of this journey. So if you are looking for guidance, support, and community as you begin to unpack and dive deeper into your men's work journey, then you know where to find us. Same place, same time, next week. Lots of love. We'll see you then.